Yo, what is up guys, Dream here, and in today's video I want to talk about SSS tier builds and how I think there may be the potential for another one coming out on the horizon here. So you can see in the background here we've got a bit of Vaal Powersiphon action here. Big shout outs to the guy who has this from 5 years ago, Sanguine X, link in the description for that. It is what I would consider one of the first SSS tier builds. It was omnidirectional, auto-targeting, and hit everything on your screen and off your screen, which was completely busted, and you could just click it with one click, bam, and off it went. And it was a Vaal skill, and you were able to sufficiently kind of sustain that, and it was one of the strongest abilities of all time before it was nerfed, and it was just so much fun to play. And there's another skill I consider SSS tier, and that is Cold Blade Vortex. You can see this is my old video in 1p from the Ritual League. Let's crank that up a little bit here. And it was ridiculous, and it was using Legacy Explode, something that if you watch my previous video, you'll know is pretty much coming back, which is ridiculous. And there's something that each of these builds have in common. They have absolutely absurd screen coverage and ability to manipulate the map area and just blow everything apart, combined with ridiculous movement speed and mobility. Now, Blade Vortex, obviously you can run while it's on you. The only downside is though that, it's a tiny area around you and you had to rely on explosion chains to really kind of leverage the strength of the skill. Now, obviously Vaal Powersiphon just had a obscene range combined with, very high movement speed, and you were able to, truck on through and, get going. And, this skill here, the one you're seeing in the background here, actually had to use a sextant to function at full power. It was the self-poison sextant, which essentially gave you a bunch of movement speed and damage, which is pretty nice. Now, I am seeing some pretty big potential in one of the new skills announced by GGG, and that is Vaal Venom Gyre. Let's take a look. So currently, Venom Gyre is a skill that's already top tier, used by some of the best players in the game for farming maps, and it's considered one of the best. And the way it works is that you can throw out a bunch of Vaal, just normal shurikens, and then they come back to you after they're done, traveling, and you catch them. And then after you catch them, you can fire them back out again with whirling blades. That's how the mechanic works. Now the catch is the projectiles that you fire out from the whirling blades, they can't come back to you, so you can't catch them again. That's not really doable. Now, I think you might be able to whirling blades directly into the projectile to catch it after you disperse it, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm not a Venom Gyre expert. But Vaal Venom Gyre is a new skill which allows you to basically generate 50 blades. Instead of catching them, you can just bam, turn them on. And then when you whirling blades, you'll be maneuvering those things out of you as you move. So now we've got a omnidirectional ability which fires out a ton of projectiles, and it's while you're moving with a movement ability. That's already a massive few checkboxes in the SSS tier category. It's definitely pretty crazy. Now, what's making this particularly interesting and a little bit, limited is it's a Vaal skill. And if you take a look up here, the actual total amount of dashes and explosions that they trigger in this video is actually 10, even though they started with 50 blade charges here. And I would have to suspect that that's due to the buff over here. I would guess that this buff is generating them additional Venom Gyre charges to disperse with their ability here. Now, you might be thinking, okay, they're dispersing 10 blades per dash. Not bad, not too bad. It's looking pretty cool. Okay, we're not at Vaal Powersiphon levels or Blade Vortex levels yet. It's not that crazy, Grimro. Settle down. And it's a Vaal skill, so, it's capped. It's inherently capped. You can't get that many of them. Well, I think that there is a way to go infinite on this fairly easily, and that is a sextant modifier or a compass modifier that allows Vaal skills to ignore Vaal skill lockouts. Now, this is pretty much the a very similar situation to the self-poison sextant, except now you'll have the Vaal lockout sextant, which will essentially allow you to basically infinitely have Vaal Venom Gyre active at all times, meaning your Whirling Blades is now basically turning into an Ethereal Knives Nova constantly. And it's even better than that because it's based off of your weapon damage, and no doubt Vaal Venom Gyre has a ridiculous weapon scaling modifier on it. So imagine that all of your Whirling Blades is basically just firing out a big Nova. Okay, that's pretty crazy. Combine that with something like Awakened Fork and all sorts of stuff like that, and okay, we're starting to get somewhere now. I'm sure you can also emulate a similar effect without the compass by using like Soulcatcher or stuff like that with the Pathfinder, if you so desired, and you might be able to get something going also with maybe like Hateforge or something along those lines. I'm not entirely sure, but there's possibilities there. All right, okay, well, how are we going to push this further? Well, of course, you take a look at something like Blade Vortex, which I showed earlier, and that was basically entirely carried by explosion chains. Now, explosion has been a mechanic which has basically been languishing in the shadows for a long time. It's been very inaccessible, very difficult to get, and just the opportunity cost of using it was astronomical in many cases, or just impossibly hard, needing a mirror tier weapon or something like that. Now, if you've seen my previous video, you'll know that they have solved this to some extent through the introduction of a new Digger Chase unique, Oriath's End, that drops off of Uber Sirius. We're not going to get too much into that, but it's fair to say that you can pretty much guarantee, if you can get your hands on this very rare flask, about a 40 or 50% chance to explode enemies with elemental damage. Well, if you combine that with an influence chest modifier of 35% chance to explode, that gives you 85% chance to explode. They stack additively, which is almost 100% chance. And that explode is even more powerful than it used to be. The 3% chance, the 100% chance explode chest used to have a damage scaler of 3%. The new one, which will have 85% in theory chance of having, is 10%, which is crazy. So we're looking some pretty big numbers here, man. Pretty big indeed. Alright, so now we have an infinitely sustainable Vaal skill which triggers off of movement skills and is pretty damn nice clear, and has explosion chains pretty much on lockdown, assuming you one-shot a handful of monsters in any direction. Alright, we're getting pretty damn close to some god tier category here. Well, let's see if we can push it even further. Now, this is just all theory right now, but let's take a look. Now, there is another Uber item coming out from designer and streamer and player John Groan here. And this ring is called Nimmy's. Now, he likes to call it NTR, Nimmy's Topaz Ring. So, NTR for short. But anyway, I digress. Memes aside, this ring has some pretty interesting interactions here. Now, no one really knows how this ring works. Not yet, at least. But people have said that basically this ring interacts with Winter Orb and, not Winter Orb, sorry, Eye of Winter and all sorts of things in weird ways. Let's talk a little bit about it. All right, so there's, lightning resist, dexterity, projectile damage, none of those matter. What matters here is the line that says projectiles return to you at the end of flight. Now, remember, we're firing out projectiles from Vaal Venom Gyre every single Whirling Blades, and we can maintain that buff seemingly infinitely on us using the Compass or Pathfinder Ascendancy. Now, if those blades that we're throwing out and then they fork, and then they all return to us, that is an obscene amount of projectiles. So it says that they return to you at the end of flight. So end of flight means at the end of when they would despawn, they all come back to you, which is pretty damn crazy. We don't know how exactly that interacts, but there is a bit of an interesting mechanic here which might really push Venom Gyre over the edge. And that is if those projectiles that return to you, if they get caught and essentially stack that counter of Vaal Venom Gyre up once again, you might basically be able to just permanently Whirling Blades with maximum attack speed, constantly just vomiting out projectiles in 360 any direction with maximum amounts of explode chaining. That would be a sight to behold. Now, of course, all of this is a theory. A bit of a PoE theory. And with all these crazy items combined, we might be looking at another SSS tier build. I hope it comes to pass. It's so hilarious when these things happen. You know, I'm not holding out hope. I'm sure one of these items will not work the way we think or anything like that. But it's a little bit of fun to think about, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and are excited for 3.20. Fingers crossed some of this stuff comes to pass. Until next time, cheers.